My name is Courtney Rogers, and today I will be speaking to you about communication and how it relates to individuals and families who have an individual that suffer with autism. Um, Many of you have heard of autism, fortunately, in recent years as media coverage and awareness has grown around the subject. And you can begin to form a mental picture of what you believe autism looks like as I talk about it. Many of you think of Rain Man or Sean's Penn character from I Am Sam. These are usually very cliche characters when considering individuals with autism. However, even with the media and all of the awareness, unfortunately, the stigma of what autism is and what it looks like and how it presents has not changed. I have had the privilege of working with children with autism for several years, as well as having a brother in the autism spectrum who was also considered to be low functioning. So through that, it's my goal of this speech to better inform you of the difficulties that these individuals face through their inability to communicate, and hopefully impart upon you a greater sympathy, understanding, and just a better grasp on their ongoing battle that they have every day. So with that, let's get started. Communication for these individuals is by far the most significant deficit that they face, not only because of the increased difficulty it puts on their life, but also because it's a contributing factor for all the other impairments that they have as well. For example, social, cognition, behavioral, etc. It really is the grandfather of all of these other deficits that they have. So for the purpose of today, I will mainly be focusing on individuals in the lower to moderate functioning area of autism. And we'll also be referring to them as non-vocal, as opposed to the previous term called non-verbal. This has been changed because it was understood that children with autism, were considered to be non-verbal, but that meant that they had no language and no other ways to communicate, which we know is not the case. So they have simply coined the term non-vocal, and that means that they cannot vocally communicate. But they do have other forms of augmentative communication that they are using to be able to communicate their needs. This can look like sign language, PECS, which is Picture Exchange Communication System, which relies on the use of icons that the children exchange to individuals to be able to meet their needs or communicate their needs. Then there are higher tech versions of that called voice output devices, like Dynavox and other like devices. However, according to the article Functional Communication Training, many parents and services are now utilizing iPads or iPods as a more affordable alternative to the pricier voice output devices, which can range anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. So as you can imagine, it is an incredible affordable alternative to the other version. Not only that, but it is more portable and lightweight, functional, and it's less conspicuous to tote around an iPad as opposed to a big bulky device that sits around your neck or around your waist. So it was definitely an answer to prayers for many of these that have children with autism. Also, regarding that stigma of being autistic and having to be out there with your disorder, is also their inability to communicate, affecting their social awareness. So the inability to recognize emotion is a significant ability that many of us take for granted and that we don't even realize is a necessity for everyday communication. According to the article in the Patient Education and Counseling Journal, more than 3/4 of all communication is nonverbal. So you have to imagine the difficulty that these individuals face when you realize not only do they have difficulty receiving and expressing verbal language, but they also have an incredible difficulty receiving and expressing nonverbal language. Because of their inability to communicate, which also includes nonverbal language, it's as if they're looking at society through a screen, and they can only see and pick out certain things to be able to focus on. So if you're saying something, they're very literal and black and white. So they don't understand puns, jokes, or other things because they can't pick up on your facial expression, your body language, your tone of voice, and other things that might communicate truth in that statement. Because of this inability to be able to communicate on a social level, they also have an increased difficulty relating to other people and forming functional relationships. This is why you will often see children with autism or individuals with autism sitting off to themselves, playing by themselves. They're a little socially awkward, and they're kind of that guy at the party that nobody wants to talk to because they're a little weird. That's usually how society views them, and can often be an indicator of the individual's inability to communicate. It's like, imagine you were going to a completely foreign country where you did not know their practices, their culture, their language, or anything, and you had to go about the day as a normal person. Imagine how odd you would feel when everybody was looking and staring at you because you weren't doing everything the way they expected you to. This is often how people with autism feel in our world, because they do things, say things, or don't do and say things that are expected of them from society. Many people think it's just because they're odd, but it is because they cannot communicate in a way that we understand in our language. According to the CERTS model by Dr. Prezant, all behavior is a form of communication. So when you see a child in the grocery store throwing a tantrum, falling on the floor, hitting it, kicking it, and screaming, you automatically think they're misbehaving and it's the parent's fault for not properly disciplining them. Your first thought is not necessarily, I wonder what they're trying to communicate. Be it autism, age, gender, what have you, no matter who you are, every behavior is a form of communication. And therefore, it's vital in understanding children and individuals with autism that no matter what it is that they are doing, they are trying to communicate something due to their inability to adequately express themselves verbally to you. So if an individual is flapping their hands, or if they're biting their arm, or they're throwing a tantrum in the grocery store, it is a form of communication that they are trying to use to express their feelings, to express their desires, their needs, and their wants. So, finally, and possibly the most difficult to deal with, are the subsequent behaviors that come from this inability to communicate. This can often be the most trying for parents and service providers. You have seen numerous occasions where people will just stop and stare when the only thing that's really important for them to do is to just simply understand, and understand that it is a difficulty for them to be able to process and receive and output this information that you are giving them, for both verbally and non-verbally. So now you have a basic understanding of how communication affects the lives of people with autism and their families. Hopefully through this presentation you left with an understanding that communication acts as the key contributor to the many behaviors exhibited by individuals with autism, oftentimes the ones looked upon with condemnation and ridicule. With this increased awareness, I also hope you have a renewed appreciation and respect for the art of communication you have been given, and while others make do without, you also need to make sure that you are using it appropriately to not only help yourself, but also to hopefully help these individuals as well. I thank you for your time and for listening. Thank you.